my mom was there with us, and she was going to take care of my wife for when the baby. And we woke up, and my wife said she thought she was having some pains there, and so we'd have made arrangements with Harlow's wife, and to keep the kids during that time, just for a few hours. And so Mom woke me up, and she said, "You better get the kids out." Get the kids out there and get the kids over to Harlow's, and I started getting kids over there, and while he was born, he was squawking. He was squawking before I got the kids all out of the house, and they didn't know what to think. Back then, the kids never knew that their mom was going to have a baby until it was there. They might have suspected it. Some of them might have. The older ones, I don't know, but most of them didn't know. We didn't talk about it to them or anything. So we went to, we got that taken care of and everything. Anyway, that summer after he was born, I believe it was that summer, 34, no, 34, 35. That was 35 instead of 34, I guess. But anyway, he was about a year old when I come to California in 1936. I went somewhere. I didn't tell my wife I was going to go to California. I kind of thought I was, but I didn't want to tell her because I knew she'd cry, and she didn't want me to go. She wouldn't want me to go be gone that long. So I knew she'd just cry about it, and it'd be too hard for me to get away to go. And I knew we could do better if we could just get to California. So I I decided to just take off and then just write her or call her back and tell her that I was in California, and I was going to send for her because we didn't have no way to go. We didn't have nothing. We couldn't do nothing with that old truck we had. Wouldn't get you nowhere. So anyhow, I went and I took off like I was going to go somewhere and be gone for a day or two. I don't remember now what I told her, but I took off and I went. This was in 1936, along in early June or something like that. I caught rides in the one. Didn't get rides very good, but I hitchhiked out to there, and I got away out in Arizona somewhere. I didn't have any money and left home without any money. Whatever we had, left it with her. And Mom and them, they come up and got her and took her down there with them. So they was going to come back to move back to Elk City again. So they went down there with them and went back to Elk City with them. So I went on. I got out in Arizona there somewhere. I don't know where now, but stopped at a little town. I just walked out the edge of town there and was waiting for a ride, and I seen this few bales of hay out there in the field. Right there, the house was about 200 yards from the road or something like that. I didn't get a ride for quite a while, so it was in the evening, and I walked out in the afternoon. I walked out there to that house and asked the people if it'd be a chance for me to help them haul the hay in or something to get some money. And so the lady talked to me for a little bit and asked me my situation and whatever. And she said, well, her husband was working somewhere, but he'd be home, and he did want to get the hay in, and he didn't have anybody to help him. So she said, maybe when he comes in, maybe he'll let you help him haul it in. He's going to be off tomorrow. And so when he came in, I went back down there. She said, if you don't catch a ride before then, I said, you come back when he comes in. I guess she told me what he'd be driving or something. And when he came in, I went back out there. I was still standing out there, and so I went down there and talked to him for a few minutes, and he said, yeah. I said, I do need somebody to help me. He said, you can help me tomorrow if you want to. And I don't think we said anything about money, about the price, but he said he'd pay me for helping him. And so they gave me my supper that evening. I didn't go back to the highway. They gave me my supper, and they told me that I could sleep out there on the hay, and they'd give me some quilts to put on the hay, and just wouldn't need no cover or anything. It was in the summertime. And they said I could just sleep out there on the hay. They had some hay was already stacked there, I guess the other cutting. And so she told me, they told me to sleep out there, and they'd feed me. They gave me the supper that night. And the next morning we hauled the hay in. We hauled the hay in that day, and I think they paid me about $3.50 or something like that. Well, that's big money. As far as I'm concerned, that was big money at the time. So I think he gave me about $3.50 or $3.50 or $3.75 or something like that. And we got, I stayed that night. I got my supper and I got my breakfast, and then I got my dinner and I got my supper and I got my breakfast again. That morning I took off back to the highway as soon as breakfast was over. And so that way, and I got that much money, and I got hitchhiked on, and it was quite a long distance from there on out there, I'll tell you. So I don't remember the town or anything, so I can't tell the distance there. Anyway, I got lots of rides. I mean, it seemed like I wasn't getting any long rides. I got lots of rides to get them out. And finally, somehow or another, I got all the way into Los Angeles, and I got in Los Angeles and went downtown LA. And I don't know if anymore if they do or not, but downtown LA, they had an employment office that you could buy a job if you had any money. And I still had a little over $2. I kept some of it. I knew this place was there. I knew it was there before when I was in California. When I was a kid, I knew they had this office down there. So I didn't spend the money. I knew that's my only chance there to get a job right away, and I needed a job right. I wanted a job right away. So I went and got a job. Went right straight to that office and hired out. I cost me $2 or $2.50, and I had enough left to do it. So out of that, I didn't. I ate a little bit, but I didn't eat very much to get to there. So they hired me out, and they picked me up. The people, they put in an application there, and when they'd hire somebody, well, they'd come and get them. And it was for Fuller's Dairy. Fuller was a big dairy outfit, and they had a big dairy out there, and so I hired out to go out on that dairy and work for $60 a month in my board. So when I got out there, they took me out there that evening and showed me the bunkhouse and everything, and where the food was at, and where the eating place, and everybody ate. And then the man come around and told me, said, now we're going to take you to Imperial Valley. Imperial Valley, you know where Imperial Valley is. So it's in the summertime, seeing it's hot down there. He told me, he said, now I'll take you down there. He said, if you don't like it, we'll bring you back. But he said, that's what the job is, but said, it don't cost you nothing to go down. I'll deliver you down there. And you work whatever you want to work. If you don't want to stay, well, that's up to you, and I'll bring you back. So I said, okay. So he took me down there, and they had a cook down there, and they had a good cook. He was a chef, I guess. He done the cooking there, and we had these tents. They were big tents, what they were, but they was under trees where they was kind of shaded. But and then they had screen wire around them, so they were screened in. Otherwise, mosquitoes eat you up at nighttime. But at nighttime, it was 90 degrees. I don't think it ever got below 90 degrees every night. I stayed 30 days. 90 degrees at nighttime. And they said it was running about 120 every day. 120 degrees. Now it's hot down there in Pure Valley. It's always hot there. And so I remember one time, now this, I don't even know how the fellow could make it through, but in that heat like that, now one of my ditches broke. I had a ditch that broke on me, and I had to shut my water off. See, what I did, I was irrigating, and I was running 2 or 3 fields, and I had they had transportation. I had a car to drive, or a pickup or something. Don't remember now if it's a pickup or a car, but anyhow, all I had to carry with me is a shovel. So I went from one field to the other, and all I'd do was change the water from one borders to the other. I'd run so many borders on each one of them, and I was on the road most of the time. Well, with the windows rolled down, you could stand the heat pretty good. And what I'd do, I'd just stop there, and then I'd walk in there on the border, and I'd switch my water. And then I'd get out of there. But one of my main ditches broke one time, and one day one of my main ditches broke, and I had to shut my water off, and all my water was getting behind, so I had to work fast. And this wasn't just a plain little old ditch. This was a big ditch. It had a levee there about 3 feet high and 3 or 4 feet high, and the whole thing washed out. So I had to shut my water off and build that back again. In 120 degree heat and 120 shade. There wasn't no shade out there. And I tell you, it's a wonder it hadn't killed me. I don't know. I never had no help to do it with. It was all by myself. So I got it done, and I went back and I worked. I didn't work long after that. I worked 30 days down there, and I called them or told the guy, and all you had to do is tell him. They'd just transfer the phone call right up there, and the guy was down there to pick me up and took me back. And he took me back to Los Angeles, and I got my $60, and I had $60 clear. So I went back to that office, and I bought me a better job. And this was still a dairy job, but it was out in San Fernando, out on Plummer Street, San Fernando, in a Knudsen. The name was Knudsen, but it wasn't a Knudsen. It was Knudsen, but it wasn't the Knudsen ones. It was a big dairy, but pretty big dairy anyhow. And I don't remember what kind of people they were, but they were really nice people, and they boarded me, and and they paid me, and he paid me $70 a month and my board, and so. I went to work for him. Now I was washing cows. That's the job I took, was washing the cows for the milkers. And I'd turn the cows in, and I'd wash all those cows and get them clean and ready. I don't remember about the feed. I don't think I fed them. I think there was a guy that fed them. But anyway, maybe I did put the feed in, but I don't think I did. I think I just turned them in and washed them. And by the time I got them washed, I'd start a little early and before the milkers got there, and I'd have the first ones washed, and then I'd run another bunch in and wash them, and I'd run 4 strings in, 120 in a string. And the very first string that I run in, there was all Holstein cattle. Every one of them was Holstein cattle, all black and white. And all of them had a tag on, and they had 6 digits. Some of them, like they'd start off with 5 zeros and a 1, or 5 zeros and a 2, and on up until they got up to where all of those letters were, there was no zeros in the front of it or whatever there. The different tags, they had chains around their neck and they had a tag hanging on. Well, I was out there and, and I was all alone. Of course, these people are friendly, like I said, and then there was company around there, and I talked to the milkers a lot, but you just about go up, just about climb the wall, and your family's back there, and had, we had 4 children. I had 4 children at that time, and my wife and 4 children, and they was back there with Mom, and I'd send them money. I sent them money, but I was saving some too. Every time I'd get paid, I'd send them some money, and then I kept some. So when the I got trying to do something that would occupy my mind, I got to looking at these cows, and I looked at their numbers. I said, what number is this cow? You know, and I'd look on her tag, and I'd see what number she was, and I'd look her over and see if I could remember her next day. The next day I would try to see if I could remember her number. You know, I got to where I could call, I could walk down behind them cows and call every last one of their numbers. And I got to where I know just almost all those four. But in 30 days, the first 30 days I was there, I knew every number. I'd take the boss down. He didn't believe it, actually. I'd take the boss down. I'd tell him, this cow's number is so-and-so, and I'd go right down through there on 120 cows. On 120 cows, I could tell him every number that was around her neck without looking at it, just by looking at the cow. That was pretty good, I'll tell you. But he never could get over that. That guy, he just, a lot of times after that, and we was running that string, there's cows there. Some cow would lay down in the corral, and she would get her foot hung in her chain. Of course, they always have the right kind of a chain so the cow can break it so that it don't hurt the cow. And if a cow lost a chain out there, and they'd go out in the corral and find the chains, but the cow didn't have a chain on, so they didn't have no record of her. They weren't branded. They didn't have no record of the cow, and he'd get me, and he'd get the chains, and he'd ask me which cow does this chain belong on, and I'd go tell him which chain belonged on which cow. And of course, whenever they milked them and everything, well, they could figure out that I had to be right. So that was a lot of help to him. And so I got enough money ahead, and I went to the railroad company, went to the train station, and bought a ticket for my wife to come out there for her and the kids. I sent her a ticket. What I did, I didn't buy a ticket and mail it to her. I went to the train station, and they sent it out by mail from Elk City, from the town that she lived in there. So anyway, they thought it was junk mail. When they sent them the ticket out, they mailed them the ticket out there. And so they thought it was junk mail, so they just threw it around there, and there was a delay there of about 2 or 3 weeks. I thought they'd be there any time. Any time I was expecting her to call me out there, and then I'd go in and get her to the train station, and you know, she didn't show up, and I didn't hear from her or whatever, and I guess I wrote her a letter. I don't think they had a phone number I could call her back there. I guess I wrote her a letter and asked her what happened, and so they hadn't thrown it away. She was kicking it around there. They found it, and so I don't know, I guess my wife she was too backward to ride the train with the kids or something. I don't know what, but my brother-in-law, he talked her into. He's the one I let have that job from that old fella. So he thought, hey, but that's a good chance for me to go to California, me and my wife, so my sister. So he had an old Oakland. Had one of those jump seats in the back, about 2 feet wide. You know, those jump seats are only about they wasn't 30 inches wide, I don't think, but they was a little over 2 maybe wide. Little mom and mother-in-law seat in the back. And she had 4 children. We had 4 children. They had a little girl. And so they hatched up that idea to come. So she let him cash that ticket, cashed the ticket, took it back, and got the money on it. And they all come out there in that car now. And she rode with, I guess, part of the kids. Some of the kids rode in there with them. One of them maybe in front. But my wife rode in the back of that seat. She rode in the back of that there little old thing there all the way to California. Now, I'll tell you, kind of made me mad, but there wasn't nothing that you could do about it anyway. Well, I knew they was coming then, so I got the house. I got a house down there in the field, just a little ways down from the dairy. I rented it, and there was a gardener out there that was gardening all around there close, and well, you wouldn't even have to buy stuff. Well, we were hauling lettuce out of from the shed, packing shed down there to the cattle, and I could pick up all the lettuce heads we wanted. To go out there to that gardener, give me all the carrots I wanted. He'd give me a lot of different kinds of vegetables that I could have. So living was just going to be real good when they got there. And when they got there, and my brother-in-law and my sister and them, they moved in there with us in this little old house, and they lived there until they got on their feet and got everything all situated. And he got him a good job and started milking cows and whatever. And well, anyway, as soon as they got away from there, they kind of lost track of us. They kind of, we didn't have much, didn't see them too much anymore. But their kids never did associate with ours or whatever. Nothing I know of. I can't even remember them ever associating at all. So anyway, they moved away from there. And I worked there for quite a long time, and then whenever I got decided I'd go into more like different kind of work where I could make a little more money, and there was a chance to make a little more money. So I found this guy that was making cesspool blocks, and I got a job from him, and we were digging some cesspools and whatever, and I went to work for him, and I don't remember now, I got $3 or $4 an hour anyway, and that was quite a bit more pay, and I kept that house for quite a while there, and anyhow, I worked around there for quite a little bit, and we moved, and first one place and then the other. After we left that little house now, we rented to some more places, and every time we'd rent a place, and we'd rent it from a real estate man, and then when the owners found out we had children, why, they'd make us move. Sometimes we'd get a notice before we was in there more than 2 weeks. We'd get a notice and have to move. We moved all around Canoga Park, Reseda, and all those places there, and I'll tell you, it was something else, and then my mom and them, they come on out from where they was at there on out into Arizona, and they was over in Arizona there, and Mom wanted to come on to California, and my stepdad didn't want to come to California, and so Mom, she decided to come on out there anyway. She figured he'd come later. So she wanted to come on out there and wanted me to come get him, and I went back there to somewhere, I don't know where, around Phoenix or whatever, somewhere out there, and got him, got her, and the married daughter. The middle girl was married, and her husband, he stayed out there, so she come with us, and when we come back there, and then we all stayed in the same house until finally he came. When he came, he broke down out there in way out by San Bernardino, out by whatever that, Pomona, out around Pomona somewhere, and then I had to go get him. I had to go get him, and I don't remember now if we had to pull his car home or whatever, or whether he went back and got it, or I don't know, man. It was just kind of one thing right after mother. It was a lot of fun, you know what I mean. We went on moving from one place to another. We'd stay a few days. We'd stay in one place, and I remember Johnny broke a window light out of one place, and I put a new window light in, but they made us move. As soon as they found out that we had children everywhere we moved, we had to move out. And so finally we got a place up in the Lakeside, California. There maybe seems like there's two lakesides in California. I'm not sure, but this lakeside I'm talking about is on out from west of Canoga Park out there. It's on up in those Chatworth Hills, kind of up in the edge there. It's the end of the canyon there, behind the lake. Anyway, we rented a place up there from somebody, and well, it was Hoot Gibson's brother, who it was. If you ever heard of Hoot Gibson, anyway, he was a movie star. It was Hoot Gibson's brother. Now, Hoot Gibson's brother wasn't Hoot Gibson at all. He was Hoot Gibson's brother. He was a different kind of a fellow. And, he wasn't no highfalutin guy, and he was kind of peculiar, though. He had his certain things that he ate and all that stuff. Well, he had a bunch of little old houses out there, and he had a house that wasn't much better. The little old houses, and we rented one of them. And we was living out there for quite a while. And we lived all around there, I'll tell you. Anyway, we just seemed like we just going from one house to another and whatever there. And then my mom, I don't know, my mom finally got a place of their own, and they lived in a house of their own up there, even in one of them little houses. And then they got back down in Canoga Park. They got on DeSoto Street, right close to the little ravine there on the south part of town, and so they lived there for a while. And I don't remember. Well, we wound up out there in a place. Let's see. We wait. Oh, we left there in 37 in the fall. In the fall of 37, we went up to Bakersfield, California, and his oldest daughter and her husband, by that time they was in California, and so they went with us. They had a Model T. I know I had at the time, let's see, I had had a Hupmobile, straight 8. That was right after a flood they had there in Van Nuys. There was some flood come down through there, and it buried some cars up to kind of about up to the motors or something like that, in sand or dirt and gravel or whatever. And this chicken ranch out there where I got a job doing some cleaning up, and this truck car was buried there, and it was a nice car. But most of the cars you'd had to take them, the engines down and redone them and whatever. But this one, I didn't anyway. I just wasn't able, maybe, I don't know, but I was just fortunate because no dirt and grit and gravel got in the motor. Because I run it for a long, long time after that. And I bought it for $50 in just sitting. I had to dig it out. I bought it for $50 like it was sitting. It was a Hupmobile straight 8, and it was in number 1 shape. So I dug it out. At the time then, I owned it. So we went up and there at the Bakersfield, and my sister, the middle girl of his middle girl, my stepdad's middle daughter, she had got her boyfriend. His name was Marino, Ralph Marino, and he run a dump truck. Well, he took them up, my folks up, in that dump truck, and my brother-in-law, his oldest daughter's husband, was driving this Model T, and I had this Upmobile Straight 8. So we went up the ridge route, up over the ridge route to Bakersfield, and that was the old route now. This is 1937. So we went over, but we like never got up with that Model T for some reason. I kind of heated up or what. Anyway, we'd drive ways and then wait on them, drive ways and wait on them, whatever. We finally got up there and over and down on the other side, and we just got down in the valley on the other side of Bakersfield there, and somebody hired us to pick cotton. So we went off in there to the west, I don't know where, but back in there somewhere, to a camp, to a labor camp to pick cotton, and we picked in there for a little while, and the cotton was, high. I don't know how high that stuff was, nearly as high as your head. And you couldn't hardly get through the stuff to pick it. But we've done all right, I guess. And we didn't even go to the store. I don't think. They had this little old truck come through there, and the guy would sell milk and first one thing and another. And we got stuff right off of that truck in the evenings there to eat. And we made a little extra. And we, somehow or another, we kind of branched out, though, and went on down the other side of Bakersfield, north of Bakersfield from there, and be on the other side from there, so be north. Anyway, out there at what's called Georgiana Farms. That's just, it's just north of Shafter there, and a little off to the east. That was all in there. That was Georgiana Farms. It was a company of guys that farmed a whole bunch of that ground for the first year. We went in there and we got a job there picking cotton, and the cotton stalks weren't so high, and it was a lot better, and it was a better job and everything. So we just we made it fine there, and we worked. And while we was working, I can remember with that Upmobile Straight 8 that I had in the mornings, in fall, the year got kind of cold. People have a hard time starting their cars, and I'd go out there and that old Upmobile go zoom, and I'd be ready to go to the cotton patch. And so there's people always wanting a push. Everybody's wanting a push, and I give people a push all over the place, all over the camp. I'd give them a push. They'd get started and go on. At this one party there, I was giving them a push in the morning, and it wouldn't start. And I'd push, and it didn't start. And I push it. It's a couple of miles. A lot of time we have to go a couple of miles to the field because, you know, the different fields we go to, and 2 or 3 miles sometimes. And sometimes I push them all the way to the field. Push them back and forth, and I pushed this one party to the field night and morning for, Lord, how long? 3 or 4 days, I guess. One morning, I was giving them pushing. I'd give them a real fast push, and then I just slowed up a little bit, and I just went out around them and went on the field. Of course, they didn't go but a few, about 100 yards, I guess, and it stopped coasting. And they went to town, got some gas, sent to town, or got somebody to go get them some gas and put gas in it. They had me pushing them for almost a week, and they hadn't put no gas in. Oh boy. Anyway, some people are like that sometimes. We worked on there in the end of the year, and I remember though when the first one we went there, and it was still warm in the fall. And Johnny, let's see, how old was Johnny then? Anyway, he was he was big enough to run around real good. Anyway, uh, 4 years old or 5 years old or something like that. There was lots of jackrabbits out there in the evening. See, our camp was right at the edge of the field, and there was just pasture land out there. It wasn't pasture, just grassland. Field as far as you could see, just grassy out there, kind of. And these jackrabbits are all over the place. He'd get out there and chase those rabbits, and they'd just hop around in front of him a little ways ahead. And his eyes would just bug out there because he thought sure he's going to catch him a jackrabbit. And he'd get out there every evening, he'd get out there and chase them rabbits. They wouldn't run off from him. They'd just get hop ahead of him a little ways. Actually, they were just tamest jackrabbits I think I ever seen. And I guess they was used to kids playing around there, and so they wasn't afraid of the kids on. They just didn't let them get too close. And they just hop around in front of him. And he had a ball, I'll tell you. But it was kind of funny watching all the kids. It was funny to watch all the kids, but with him it was kind of special because he just thought sure he's going to catch a jackrabbit. He thought sure he was going to catch him a jackrabbit now for sure. So anyway, we worked on there that fall, and while we was working in the fall, every chance I had, I would work on a trailer. I got me a frame and whatever there, and got me some plywood, and I made a pretty nice looking little trailer out of it. I bent for the front. I bent the plywood and bowed it. I built the frame on there and the whole outfit, and then we moved in it. We was living in tents. We were all living in tents out there. Everybody was living in tents, and so I got that built, and I didn't finish it inside, but I got the outside pretty good and got it where it wouldn't leak or anything. And we moved in it, and we lived in there. The children slept down below, and we slept up on it's kind of bunked up for the bed in the back there. And we had, I guess it's pretty good. It was a lot better than the other people had living out there in a tent. And when the rains come, it rains some, and then it'd quit raining. We'd go pick some more cotton, whatever. Well, we stayed there on in until spring because we had our own deal. And when the cotton was over, I remember when the cotton was over, they had a barbecue for everybody, and it was free. It didn't cost a thing, and it was pit barbecue. And they hired this guy to come, and they barbecued a whole beef. All the pickers that stayed, they barbecued a beef, and that was the best meat I think that I ever did eat. And they had this beans to go with it. They had it all fixed to the right seasoning, and everything was just exactly right. And that meat was so tender you didn't have to chew it hardly, just almost just pulverize in your mouth when you start to bite down on it. And that was a big treat. Well, we stayed there until in the spring. In the spring of 1938, we went back to San Fernando, and the folks, they went over to Corcoran. That's just a little ways from here. Now, right now, we live in Tulare, so that was just a little ways out west of here. So they went over there, and we went on back to down there, and I guess I don't know how they got back, but I guess the guy moved them back. But we went down there, and we rented a little house on Topanga Canyon, just east of, or south of Canoga Park, maybe a mile out there, and we just called it the Little Red House. It was a little old farmhouse, and just 2 rooms, I think. Yeah, it was just 2 rooms. It was kind of long, I don't remember how big the rooms was, but there was maybe 14 feet wide, or 14 or 16 feet wide, and and the whole house was about 28 or 30 foot long or something like that. Anyway, we lived there, and we thought we were doing pretty good. Right now, I guess me and my wife couldn't live in nothing that small, but we thought we was just getting along fine. We never, if there was room to make down pallets and have a bed or two up in it, we thought we're doing pretty well. Well, there was a woman come out there that was stepsister to my stepdad way back there, and she was out there, and I don't know how come me to do this, but I guess you just do some good things for people sometime. Then we was expecting another youngster at the time, and so we got this woman wanted to move in the house with us. She's just her and her boy. She had a boy about 15 or 16 years old. She was a widow woman at the time, and she wanted to move in the house with us. She wanted part of the house. Yeah, I can't figure out till this day how come I give her half of that house. I let her live in half of it. We had one room, and we done our cooking in there, and she had one room. Actually, come to think of it, it must have been 3 rooms. It must have been small rooms or something. There must have been 3, and I let her have one of them, and we kept the other 2. They were all small anyway. I know we just didn't have enough room. We just couldn't hardly make it. And I kept talking to her and trying to get her. She was going to get her house. We just let her use that till she could get her a house. That's the way it was. But she wasn't getting no house. She wasn't even looking for a house. In fact, I don't think she wanted a house. And so I kept telling her, you're going to have to get a house. She said, well, I can't find a house. She wasn't looking for a house. And finally, I just come down, and we just getting so close to the wife having the baby, and I know we couldn't make out any longer. And I told her, you're going to have to get you a place to stay now. I ain't going to keep you here any longer, so we got to have this room. So she got mad about it, and my sister, she got mad at me because I told her that, and my sister took her in. Well, my sister had trouble getting rid of her too, and when the time comes, she finally did, I guess. But anyway, she was just going to stay around, that's for sure. Anyhow, we lived there for a while, and then after our boy was born there, Gene was born there, and Gene Willis Miller, and then we rented a little house. I don't remember now. I think they was going to tear that down and put some development or something there, but we had to move for some reason. Not because we had children, that's for sure, because the people owned it didn't care. That's the only house we ever owned, I guess, while we had children. The people didn't care about children being there. Anyway, I mean, the only place we ever lived in. So we went up on a kind of up chute. That's a little, let's see, that was southwest of Canoga Park. Well, actually, it was right straight west of where we were living at there at the time, on Topanga Canyon. It was over in there in the Walnut Grove, they called it. And we went over there, and we rented a house over there now, and that was a good place. And the people, I don't remember ever seeing them. I guess we paid the rent to real estate or something, but I don't remember ever seeing the owners. They never bothered us anyway. And it was a nice little place, and we enjoyed it. And so we just got along fine there. And then there, I bought that old car from my brother-in-law, that old Pontiac. I was always doing something, I tell you. I bought that old car that he come to California in, and my wife rode in the back of that there little old rumble seat. I bought that thing from him, and while I was out there at that little house, I cut it off in back, and I built bed on the back of it, and had the frame all built, and wasn't getting along with it too good, and so I had to get my, well, what I did, we went back to Mama's house and lived with them, or we put a tent up, or not a tent either, we just kind of put up a shed like with a piece of canvas right alongside of her house there under a tree, and then my wife slept there, and the kids slept in the house until I got that car finished. And I made a station wagon out of it, is what I done with plywood, cut the back off there.